This past week, I got my hands on the mobile edition of Katana Zero. I had no intention of making a video on this game, but after the first 20 minutes of playing, that completely changed. For those exhaustive, massive RPGs pushing the mainline story 20 to 30 hours longer than it needs to be, Katana Zero respects your schedule and is likely completable within 10 hours. Short but sweet, this game wastes no time on introducing an interesting and complex story that will keep you intrigued until we roll the credits. Without further ado, I'm Cliff, from Clifnotes, and welcome to my video review of Katana Zero. And just a warning, there are some light spoilers ahead. First things first, I had no idea what I was getting into with this game. I've only ever played a few side-scrollers in the past, so my experience with this genre is relatively light. However, the thing for me that really separated Katana Zero from some of the other games I've played recently is the story. I don't know why I was surprised that the story was so dark when Katana is literally in the title, but it goes places and deals with things that some games shy away from. Let me backtrack. In the beginning, we're introduced to Zero. Zero is an ex-military soldier currently living in the 3rd district of a large city in which the game takes place. It's kind of got that Hunger Games vibe to it in the sense that District 2 and District 1 are seemingly nicer than 3, and 3 is more run down with higher crime and drugs and has creepy strangers that your parents warned you not to talk to. Anyways, Zero's been having these weird dreams that are incomplete with a shadowy figure committing a violent crime. The type of dreams that lead Zero to talk to his therapist near a warm fire. But in my entire life, I've never really seen a therapist not look out for the well-being of their patient like this guy. This dude is straight up the most toxic therapist I've ever seen. Bro might not actually be a therapist, but as I was playing the game, that was the vibe I was getting. Our unfriendly therapist gives Zero a drug called Kronos, which is the basis for how the game functions. Kronos is a government-developed drug that unlocks brain precognition, allowing an individual to foresee coming events or actions. Instead of dying, which would happen in a typical game like this, Katana Zero utilizes a videotape loop that reminds you back to the starting point after each failure. The gameplay here is top-notch. In addition to the rewind feature, there is also a slow motion feature which makes some of the seemingly impossible gameplay beatable. However, slow motion must be used wisely since you only have a few seconds before the action resumes full speed. Each level is difficult, but not impossible, and using a rewind tape as a mechanism from being under the influence of Kronos is really clever. One thing I truly appreciated was the thought that was put into the level design. For example, early on you're given a dossier with the objective of taking down DJ Electrohead. This was also the first mission to take a big step up in difficulty, and the game forces you to start to understand its systems to progress. Even though you basically can only throw things, slow down time, and strike an enemy, learning timing and efficiency is really what separates this game apart. Sometimes games can feel bloated with all the systems at play, and in Katana Zero, it's entertaining to just get back to the basics. The Club Neon segment was one of my favorites, but the game doesn't slow down or stop there. Each conversation and dialogue choice builds up interest in our main character, Zero, and his complicated past. You're going along this journey with Zero, and you'll inherently want to figure out the truth behind everything going on just as much as he does. While the levels are fun, it could be said that the intermission portions are even more enjoyable. While back at Zero's apartment, I caught myself listening to the news, recapping the crimes that just took place by Zero's doing. You can check the fridge, sip a cup of herbal tea, or even take a nap, and after each level, Zero gets a clear glimpse into the crime committed, with additional blacked out figures becoming invisible to Zero for the first time. Pretty early on, Zero finds a little girl outside his apartment claiming to be his neighbor, which is also immediately odd since there are not supposed to be any kids within the 3rd district. At first it's brief, but this little girl slowly but surely becomes a larger character in the game. Moreover, after killing DJ Electrohead, figures Comedy and Tragedy appeared beside him while he is sleeping. Both them let Zero know that in 3 days, he's going to be given a choice of life or death, and whichever Zero chooses, they'll take the other. To be honest, this part of the story was a little ominous and confusing, but I think the writers felt that this game should be open for interpretation, kinda like a Christopher Nolan film. A few levels in, Zero finally meets his match and discovers that there are more people like him, who are also on Kronos through V. V seems to have the utmost respect and even idolizes Zero, thinking he is called the Dragon, but with the twist that he's a crazy psychopath and kills his loud neighbors just to prove himself. Disgusted by V's actions and with assignment from his therapist, Zero hunts down V, leading to some incredible boss battles with individuals also familiar with the effects of Kronos. A couple of these battles in particular encourage the player to break the narrative of the game to irritate V and leave him vulnerable to attack. In my opinion, this was such a clever way to utilize the precognition mechanic in not just the gameplay, but the dialogue as well. I found that the game was making me think throughout the entirety of each dialogue choice. This leads to an incredible boss battle with V fighting with an attack helicopter, and Zero dodging and finding openings while was riding a motorcycle. While down, V continues to refer to Zero as the Dragon and Null until the true elusive dragon character finally comes into the picture and takes down V once and for all. Without going into too much explanation, we also get to play as the dragon for an enjoyable but brief period, showcasing his unique powers of teleportation within short distances. The dragon is also on a path of vengeance, searching for another dossier target in common with Zero. Following V's death, Katana Zero ramps up the difficulty even further with new enemy types such as thugs with Gatling guns, which force the player to use the slowing time ability with even more precision. In this game, it's one hit and you're back at the beginning, so you have to be incredibly careful if you want to progress to the next stage. Zero also possesses a sort of quick roll ability, allowing him to phase past laser defenses or dodge bullets to take down a turret or thug. I found that the quick roll ability was probably my favorite in the game, since it was an essential evasive maneuver for quick attacks from the opposition, especially when you run out of the slow time ability. Even though this ability is useful, it's not overpowered since you can quick roll right into a laser or right in between two enemies pretty often, which balances this ability quite well. While the enemy types are indeed a good challenge in themselves, each level offers a unique challenge as well. For example, during one level, a computer-controlled sniper attempts to take you out, so if you're standing still for too long, it could be the end for you. Another level takes place in a hotel, and you have to ride an elevator to multiple floors to gather keys to lead to V. It becomes clear that each level has its own personality and style, which makes the game feel fresh even when you're well into it. Early on in the story, it is apparent that our therapist is not looking out for Zero, and rather cleaning up loose ends. The story does a good job of building up tension as Zero comes to the realization that lies are being told to him and shows the slight panic from the therapist as he slowly loses control of his patient. As the tension builds, we're still under the influence of Kronos and continue to carry out the bidding of the therapist and the people he represents. Soon enough, we realize that our primary objective is to eliminate people just like Zero, former military veterans who took Kronos during the Big War. Despite this, our dossier gives us new targets, some of which we have to use infiltration methods in order to just get in the room with them. One of these methods in particular displays another clever use of the precognition ability. We're tasked with gaining entry to the back room of a high-profile Chinese casino. With only 2,000 chips to our name, we're told we'll need at the very minimum 100,000 to get past the guard's self-named Brickwall Bill. Bribing isn't an option here either, as he'll even change his nickname to Morally Sound Mark if you select that option. We're directed back to play two-color roulette with a 5x payout, and after a few rounds of grinding each roll, Zero can anticipate the next roll to further multiply his payout and get past Brickwall Bill, or Morally Sound Mark if you will. After many more twists and turns, Katana Zero cements itself into having one of the best and most thought-provoking stories in the last 10 years. As we go along this journey with Zero, we're uncovering secrets along the way and able to put together pieces of the story of what's really going on in the background. Zero's acquaintance with the little girl becomes special as the dangers of the 3rd District creep closer and closer to their apartment building. But the foreshadowing that comedy and tragedy reveal is disturbing still. Zero's mind is complex and his memory is limited, so he can't always trust what you see. After all is said and done, the reveal that Zero was in fact the soldier in his nightmares that killed the little kid during the war is the true big reveal. Some may have seen this coming, but the gravity of the event makes it feel no less devastating. Disturbed and confused, it is really easy to question the reality at the end of the game. And with this point, Zero is led to believe that the little girl is a figment of his imagination the whole time by his neighbors in the apartment building. The owner of the building even stated that there are no kids in the building. Precognition as a gameplay mechanic is an innovative and fresh take on the normal 2D side-scroller. The story, level design, and gameplay are all true positives for Katana Zero. I would say that the only slight negative is how the game ramps up the difficulty pretty quickly without too many tutorials, and that's just being nitpicky. All things considered, and in my opinion, Katana Zero is a 9 out of 10, and I massively recommend it to anyone who's yet to experience it before. It's also currently free on mobile with your Netflix subscription, so I highly recommend you grab it if you have a mobile controller at this time. Katana Zero will leave you questioning the reality and fabric of the game. Is the little girl real or fake? Did comedy and tragedy imply they'd take the life of the little girl if Zero chose life? I'll leave that for you to discuss, even though I've already searched through a few Reddit forums to understand it all. Anyways, be sure to like and subscribe, it'd be truly appreciated. Once again, I'm Cliff, from Clifnotes, and thank you for watching my video review of Katana Zero. Hasta la pasta.